Q&A and questions. So if you do have specific comments or questions for Professor Adesina, this is the time to air it or forever remain quiet.
Hello, I have something to say.
Okay. Yes, please, Rhodian, and then followed by Rachel.
Yes, the prof kept on saying that they borrow theories from social sciences, and he kept on distancing history from social sciences. And yet some of the historians that we meet emphasize on the fact that history is actually a social science. So I would like to know why he does not put history in social sciences, but in a category of its own. Maybe, I don't know whether he's putting it in the arts or humanities over and against the social sciences, because I don't know why this difference among historians themselves. So if he can explain on that, thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Right. Thank you very much, Rhodian. Well, for us in Nigeria, history is in the liberal arts. It's not in the social sciences. But I never tried to distance history from the social sciences. What I did was trying to categorize the subfields of history and how close they are to different aspects of social sciences. All of us together actually work with anthropologists. But for us, in economic history, yes, we move close to the social sciences, closer than political historians, for instance. And so that's what is responsible for the dichotomy. But I did not try to say that that dichotomy exists. But as historians, we do not generate theories. That's what I was trying to say. Within the field, we don't generate theories. We only use what has been generated either to affirm a position or to move back from a position. But we don't generate. The social sciences does all the generation. Hardly will you find historians generating theories. It's not part of our of our tools in that respect, but we use them.
Thank you. Rhodian, are you smiling or still grumbling?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much for the explanation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Are you a historian?
Myself.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
I am a church historian. Apart from being
okay.
a theologian and a religious studies scholar, I am also a church historian. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you work with hermeneutics.
Yes, with hermeneutics and other things.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you. Rachel had her hand up earlier. Unmute, please.
My passion is in curriculum development. And as I am rethinking with my team about curriculum development, I wanted to find out from you. You've highlighted something to do with in relation to competition, between the traditional courses and the courses which engage with the African realities. And I think I gave an example from here, gender and development, which attracts a lot of students, And my fear is that, of course, we are going to generate a program, but my fear now is if we create this competition, because we know that we are going to have a course or a program which is going to be a real hot cake, on the university. And now, my fear is, are we not going to kill the existing program which is there? And I just wanted you to help me and my team on that, because the other possibility is probably maybe to leave the curriculum development at postgraduate level instead of undergraduate level, so that we do not kill the programs. What is your take on that from your experience there at the University of Ibadan, where my sister is working at the
Kubi?
Yes.
Well, what was your primary department?
My primary department remains theology and religious studies.
Okay, so you want to create the gender within
Yeah. We have really become very, we engage with the issues of society. So we have courses which engage with the society, and that is just one of them. But then what the reality is that many are moving away from the traditional courses, like you gave an example of the traditional course, and they tend to lean towards enrolling into these, new courses. Now, what can we do? Should we do curriculum development at undergraduate or at postgraduate level without murdering the courses which are there? What is your experience?
Well, I don't see any contradiction there at all, because I remember developing the history program of the new university, Ajayi Crowder. And right from the undergraduate level, I put this gender courses in as part of the courses they are going to take. But that does not stop them from actually also floating it at the postgraduate level. I don't see any contradiction. I don't see any competition. The only problem I might see from your perspective is if it's domiciled in religion, theology, if you're not careful, you may end up making it look more like an appendage of religious studies. Because some of the things you are going to be teaching there may move towards religiosity rather than something that is open and accessible. And when you begin to talk about roots in the Bible now, moving away from the purpose of the course. No, I'm not saying it should not feature, but it should be more of what do you call it? The one that is not sacred, not
No, actually, our courses are
secular.
Even education students take our courses, so it's not really like we are. Our courses are purely for religion, those studying religion and
theology.
Yeah, so we have students also who enroll from education department who enroll in our courses, and even those from history, pure history, and even from sometimes even from geography, we have students from there.
Yeah, well, the social here in Ibadan, the social sciences people think they are the owners of gender and women's studies. And so, well, we also have women's studies in history, but the only way you can stop it from being a competition is give them one or two topics to teach within your department to create a sense of inclusivity. That's how you, they still called me from the social sciences faculty today. They are floating a course and they want me to teach a course on the program. Same thing with the peace and conflict program. I also teach a course with them on it. So that's the only way you could ensure that it doesn't become competitive or a rat race to say, okay, why should it be religious studies or your units that will float it? So make sure from the beginning, from the conception stage, you give one or two to them in history, to them in sociology, to them in anthropology, to them in somewhere else to ensure that you bring them in as partners. But if you don't bring them in at all, that's where the problem is going to start from. Yeah.
Rachel, could I add a footnote to that? I mean, Tayo talks about paying attention to proverbs and saying. And so my advice would be to find a middle position between putting new wine into old wineskins or putting old wine into new wineskins. Does that make sense?
Mm.
So you are able to create a balance in a way that you are not throwing away the traditional courses, but you are actually revitalizing them.
Yeah.
So you take an old course, perhaps you are teaching Old Testament, or you are teaching a synoptic gospel. How can you make, and you have 10 topics in that synoptic gospel, how can you make one topic gender perspective?
Okay.
So you didn't change the course. You are actually bringing some new wine into the old wineskin.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a difference between starting a new course entirely, which is one track, but there's another thing, looking at your old courses, how can you repackage them? Or as we say, permit me, make them sexy so that they become attractive. And bring in that kind of interdisciplinary perspective. You know, we often say, how do you rebrand your courses in a way that even though you are in theology, you are teaching a course where people in computer science or information sciences or in sociology or in health sciences can find a relevance. And not simply thinking that you are teaching BK. In Nigeria, we say BK, Bible knowledge.
Yeah, even here it's BK.
Okay. So
my fear with your program is this. You are trying to create a program that is independent. So that if you get a BA theology, for instance, you also want to create a BA theology and women's studies or something like that. Rather than infuse some of these ideas into the old topic or old courses. You know, if you infuse this new idea into the old courses, it won't be popular because it is still the theology.
Yeah, you see what is happening is that the students, the cheater students, not the hippo, but the cheater students, you know what they are interested in is having an academic transcript at the end of the day,
That's
which
what
is
I'm
going
saying.
to be appealing to the labor market, you know?
Exactly.
So in as much as you can put a new topic, a new way.
sorry, I think we lost Rachel because she was trying to pour too much of new wine into a old wine skin.
Now, you know what I was trying to say? What I was trying to say is that I think they want to start a new program. And that program will be a different track. So that if you don't get a BA theology, you then get a BA gender studies or BA women studies or BA women and theology. So this is what I think they are trying to do, which is going to be more energizing than when you begin to infuse topics on women into the old topics. Because
so I think what we encourage at the level of the project is that people can feel free. I mean, it's a program like her project has a number of other colleagues. So on one hand, they can come up with a new program entirely, but on the other hand, another member of the team can decide in his or her courses, you know, also infuse something new or change the curriculum. Because in actual fact, in some universities, it's easier to infuse new topics in an old course than having a new one approved. So so it's not a this or that. It will be a this and that.
Yeah, well, if they do that, what the Twitter generation wants is that new identity. That, no, I'm not in history, I'm in history and international studies, you know?
Yes,
So that's the kind of thing they are going to run into. So if they don't create a new stream that shows
Ah.
that yes, you can get this, then of course
My
it's not going to
internet
make any
is
difference.
not really working.
You have to create a
properly.
new track. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that is very helpful. And I'm sure, Rachel, you've gotten the gist, the advice is trying to provide. So let's go on. Let's have more contributions and questions.
Afi, would you like me to read the question that is on the chat? This is Denise on the English channel.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Samuel, how are you?
Prof, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm fine. But let me give you a little bit of why I placed that question. It's actually a question to relax you. You know, you were bringing so much content, and I felt a bit overwhelmed. And Professor Afe actually alluded to this. He said, well, you need to create a file on the side so that you don't get overwhelmed.
Okay.
And I sensed that people were getting so much over, but I'm sorry, it doesn't mean it was less. It was absolutely fabulous, but it was too much. So I needed to, for my own self, I needed to break a little bit of that and talk about food and history. You know? So if you want, so if you feel relaxed to talk relaxedly without mentioning theories or any of that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, no, it's fine. You know, in history, we are used to all the volumes, all the razzmatazz, and that's why they always say it is easier to change the course of history than to change a course in history.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is another lecture.
Exactly.
No, but the question I want to ask you has to do with your topic. You are the one working on Mozambique.
Correct.
Okay, so what precisely drew you to that topic? Are you from that ethnic group? And if you are from that ethnic group, how are we sure you are not going to show biases to your group? And if you are not from that ethnic group, are we sure that you are not going to create a kind of hegemonic perspective to say these people are crooks, they are not this, they are? How do you? First of all, let me know whether you belong to that same ethnic group.
Samuel, before you respond, we have Joyce and Babatunde on the line, on the queue. Okay, so go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. That is actually a very important question. And it has been on our mind from the start. My colleagues raised already a flag on that. Be careful, you know, why? I mean, it's the question of why we picked that particular group. Why did we go to that particular place instead of any other? And so that is very important to give credit to the whole research we plan on doing. There's a little dissertation on that on our abstract, but basically no. I am, but I'm not part of this group. The group is quite amorphous, and it encompasses a large section of the southern part of Mozambique, so which has about 6 ethnic groups altogether, or subgroups within the Tsonga. It's a large. If I say yes, I belong to that, it would be like stretching it too much. First of all, I don't speak Shangana, which is the language there, but I speak Shitsa, which is another development up north. So it's not. I'm not connected directly, but the Tsonga place we picked, it's really a small village, but it has a lot of history in it. And this history is attached to the whole idea of nationalism, Mozambican nationalism itself. And the Protestants, the earlier Protestants, were the ones who raised what we call today a national consciousness by talking about the exile, the book of Exodus, you know.
Okay.
And so they brought they raised the national consciousness through that, and that's where Eduardo Mondlane, the founder of Frelimo, you know, comes from. And so there's a lot of story there to be told in that sense. But also Tsonga, if you dig a little bit as you're a historian, you told us today we need to look at history. Tsonga really doesn't mean anything other than saying south, sul, you know, south.
Oh.
It doesn't mean much anything. If you look at the etymology of the word, it really only means south. It doesn't mean anything. And so who actually brought the word Tsonga into the surface and made it relevant into scholarship was an anthropologist and also an entomologist called Henry Junot. He was the first back in 1890 to do a thorough research on what he called Tsonga. So Tsonga was actually a creation at the meeting between the West, between Europe and Africa. It was a nation built from refugees who were coming from a part of Switzerland. They were being expelled in Switzerland, and they were missionaries, but they were refugees also. And so they met also refugees from this region of Gaza in the middle, and they created what today is called Tsonga. So it's something very fantastic we find here, and it's also mixed up with the Protestantism as a movement. Yeah. And so there's a lot to be told about this, and so why are we? The question you place is why Tsonga? I hope I give you an insight of why is it. There's a lot of juice to it. I may not be able to milk it all together today, but it's fantastic. At least from my own view.
That's good.
What are we looking for? Like, what are we looking for? Well, we are looking for these people also are known to have fantastic stories of their pilgrimage and all of that. But I may take too long. I don't want to take too long on this. Sorry. I'm also a historian of some kind, so I tell stories. You can imagine. but the thing is, we think that their religious stories can tell us something that can be a ground for a grounded, if I may repeat, a grounded theology. You know, that's where we're going, really. We want to be able to say something, we want to be able to build something from the Tsonga religious stories. Okay, I hope
thank
this
you,
makes
Samuel.
sense. But...
Yeah, I think that is quite, that is actually appetite whetting. So we're looking forward to what you will dig out from your research. No, I think it's definitely going to be a very original contribution. So we're excited about your group, and Retif and I are going to visit you in Mozambique, and then you can show us the boundaries of Tsonga. Yeah.
No problem.
They also spread across the border. They are in South Africa also.
In South Africa, yes.
Yes, they are boundless in that sense. They're boundless. But also, Afe, Professor Afe, I will also tell you about the Mozambican plate. We are still on the food issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's matapa here, which is a very nutritious local Tsonga food. It's called matapa.
Okay.
Put that on your notes.
All right. Yeah. Very interesting matapa. Yeah, not as good as the jollof rice in any case. Joyce, can you come in, and then Babatunde?
Oh, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to ask my question. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Adesina for your presentation. I followed it with keen interest. But at the beginning, you posed several questions And one of the questions is, what is the politics behind your research?
Yes.
And you also made a reference to holy voices. I would like to hear more about these two.
Well, we have just discussed with Samuel, and one of the things I was asking him was the politics of his own research. Every research, every research is nuanced. Same with when you develop concepts. There is no way you can walk, and then of course you have a position that you are starting from. But as you work your way through the research, you begin to shed some of these positions based on what you have seen in the field. So there is no research without the politics. Oh, I want to see why the Songa love food so much. Okay, that's your own perspective, for instance. And at the end of the day, you go into the field and you discover that it's not about loving food, but because certain things occurred in time, in space, that's what has turned them into this. So the politics of choosing a topic, the politics of choosing your materials and resources, the politics of even choosing those to interview, these are politics. You might not look at it from that perspective, but it's politics. So what we need to do is to just be careful that the political angle does not overwhelm the intellectual angle. Because as intellectual, we have to move back from whatever we do as scholars. So does that answer your question?
Yes. But what about holy voices?
The what?
The holy voices.
Oh, the holy voices. It was who raised the holy voices? I think it was let me see. It was Okello. It was Okello who raised the holy voices, and I was saying, look, what kind of voice do you hear? Okay, if we are talking about politics on the one hand, and you are talking about holy voices on the other hand, what kind of holy voices? Is it about, now God has told me not because it happened to one of my person in Ife. He was supposed to research into Yoruba traditional gods and societies. Second year into the program, he became born again. And then he listened to the voice of God to say what he's doing is not good. So he abandoned that research. So there is a difference between the research you want to do as a scholar and your religious existence. So he moved back from that initial research and then moved into something that for him was harmless. So these are the kind of things we also engage with. In his own case, he listened to the voice of God to say, no, that's fetish. That's not good. But should we be listening to that when the purpose of our research is to conduct research?
Yeah.
And so I was only asking Okello. Yeah. So I was only asking Okello that what is the kind of voice you hear in the field? You should give us example, and I only provided one. Like if you are interviewing a pastor, and then the pastor, as far as you are concerned, did not do well, he has to be criticized for what he has done, but then you listen to the God to say, touch not my anointed and do my prophet no harm. So how does that affect your research?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think even to further politicize that, even what is called the voice of God, how do you know it was the voice of God and not someone who's so that is politics as well, because sometimes the pastor or prophet, is standing there and telling people, God has just told me. And we have cases where in Zimbabwe, a pastor telephones God and dials God's number and claims that is communicating with God. So again, that's the politics of communicating with God. Who knows whether it's not something else that is happening? So anyway, that we have two questions on the chat with Retif, and then we have Tunde and Oluchi. Could we take Tunde and Oluchi, and then Retif would read out the two questions? Tunde, please.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you, Professor Adesina, for the stimulating sessions we had today.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
As an historian, what's your take on selective incorporation of Nigerian Pentecostal church leaders in terms of their music, dressing, and religious creativity using indigenous cosmologies to attract and sustain their clientele?
Okay.
Secondly, sir, you noted that research will impact the society and not just on scholarship.
Yes.
And you cited the Google citation of a scholar that didn't pick up, but when he engaged on issues that has to do with society and relevant to the society, the citation also increased.
Yes.
In as much as that is important also, the use of citation in itself has been problematized in academia, particularly in third world countries, considering the poor level of investment in the academic sector. And as you, as a prominent scholar of history and also a leading figure in several fellowships, the issue of citation as a measure of relevance in that context in which you cited, sir, can you consider it as being also the citation level of the journal, particularly in which the article was published, might have been responsible for the citation, and not necessarily that article might be a topical issue in the context in which the researcher conducted it, but the journal in itself might be a primary factor for the citation. And so you are talking about impact factor and all that. And so, but even in Nigeria, we don't have any journal that has any impact factor. And many are being assessed based on that. For appointment, how do you reconcile this as an historian?
Thank you very much. You know, what I was trying to do had nothing to do with my support for Google Scholars as an index of good research or good outlet. What I tried to show with that was that if you look at my own publication and that of Professor Jegede, you will see that in our field, those things we published in our direct primary fields were the ones less cited. So I'm not trying to use it as an index of, it's popular, it's well accepted. But what I'm trying to say is that when you look at the level of consumption of the articles, it's something that has to do with academic rather than something that is socially engaged. But for the ones that are socially engaged, people are ready to just consume it. So it's not a criticism or acceptance of Google citations. It's just one of the examples of how things change in the academia based on what people want to see. So journals in Nigeria, for instance, without visibility, I have also, had occasions to criticize that because I think the emphasis should be more on the importance of that publication rather than the outlet. There are certain obscure journals with very good articles that if you write some papers today, we tell you, no, you have to go and look for this article. And yet they are in very obscure journals. So I think it's part of the commercialization of intellectualism that has driven us to this side. And I'm not sure it's serving any good purpose, most of all for those of us in the developing world, because it has been used now as part of the hegemonic tools to suppress what we do in this part of the world. If you are not visible, then you are not doing anything. That's not good. So for me, I don't buy much into into the indices being used to raise our intellectualism. Then, of course, when you talk about selective enculturation and clientele, well, that's the reality now. And if you see the old churches, the Orthodox churches, they have also now understood the politics of it. To say, if you don't bring back these children, give them what they want, the old churches will die. The only time these children go back to the church is when they want to get married. And their parents are still in the old churches. Immediately they finish their wedding, they move away. So I think the Pentecostal churches are very wise in ensuring that they keep up the clientele by giving them what they want, whether in music, in dressing, or any other thing. It's the reality. And that's why I kept on talking about the African reality, the realities of Africa. These are issues we cannot run away from. Oh, they don't do that in Europe, they don't do that in America, but they can do it in Africa simply because this is what these children crave for. So it is very important for the Pentecostal churches. They also want to survive. If they don't want to go the ways of the old churches, to also study the trend, create avenues for the consumption of what these younger elements want, and then run with it.
Thank you, Tayo. We have about 10 minutes, and I want to ensure that we can take the questions. So could I ask Oluchi to give the comment on question? You note it, and then Retif would read the other two questions. And then when you respond, maybe Rhodian would have the last comment or question. So Oluchi, please.
Okay, thank you, Prof. And thank you, Professor Adesina.
Thank you.
I had put this as a question on the chat, but I think it was missed. So let me just ask directly.
Okay, thank you.
Some time ago, some years ago, a professor in my institution, a historian, made a statement that there is creativity in history.
Yeah.
And I began to wonder, I'm not a historian, but that statement seemed, for me, it seemed, I couldn't understand it. Let me just put it that way. I couldn't understand where creativity will be coming into history. Because my idea of history is objectivity, presenting it as it happened.
Yes.
So why are you bringing creativity? Because I'm from the creative arts. I'm from dramatic arts, theater. So if you're talking about creativity in history, that kind of contradicted for me. And now in your presentation, you also said something about critiquing the data when you would have come back from the field. And that kind of took me back to that statement. Now, my question is this. If you have to critique a data, I mean, to what extent do you have to critique a data and still remain objective and also true to what you are doing as a historian? How much of yourself, I mean, how are you able to detach yourself from your critique?
Okay.
And still remain objective. I think I've made the point.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start from the last one about critiquing the data. When we say you critique a data, it means you assess the data, you dissect it. And when you dissect it, you begin to look at the missing gaps. That's part of the critique.
Okay.
And then, of course, once you see the missing gaps, you go back to the field to say, okay, this is what I have missed. You either go back either to the same archives or to the same person or to other people to say there is a gap I'm trying to fill in the narrative.
Okay.
You know, that's the critique we are talking about. So it's still your desire to achieve objectivity.
Okay.
Because if you don't critique it critically, then of course you just give us the narrative the way you received it, which is not good for us. Then about creativity in history, what I meant by creativity in history, I understood that perfectly. Because when I got to Ibadan, you know, Ibadan is a very conservative school, which is fine, because it's a school that has tradition. And so there is a way in which they also craft their topics. Either the thesis or journal articles that you know, oh, this is an Ibadan topic. But in the same vein, you look at the same topic and then turn it around to make it look a little bit trendy. For instance, one of the ways in which Ibadan does its topic in those days is when you look at Nigeria history. Let's look at it as a topic. And the topic looks at Nigeria history yesterday and today. You know, that's a topic. But then somebody will take the same topic and say, you know, a critique of Nigerian history in the context of structural adjustment.
Okay.
You could see that we are talking about continuity and change in the sense that what history was in the past perhaps is being affected or influenced by the structural adjustment program that began to look at history as a useless subject.
Okay.
Meanwhile, if you look at this topic, they are the same. They are the same because,
sorry, we'll be thrown out of here in 5 minutes. So I just wanted to maybe give an opportunity.
Basically, you understand what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Olichi, pay ties to Tayo and he will finish that.
Okay, I will, Prof.
Okay. Yes, Retif, would you like to chip in with the comments? And then there's one question, final one from Rhodian, and I think Felix. Yeah.
Afe, in the chat there are some comments in Portuguese. I think Denise earlier said she could interpret that directly to us.
All right.
So
yes.
If that's possible, could Denise or Juliana maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Retif, I can.
Thanks.
So yes, please listen to the English channel. And I'm going to read Edson's question.
Okay, let me just, sorry, Denise, let me just tell them all because I'm not sure everyone is listening to this channel right now. Okay. So let me just say, everyone should click on the English channel for this. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the question reads, if I may help, I believe that these classes could be included in undergraduate and also postgraduate or graduate courses. What is most important is to have very defined goals and to dose things to the level that they are related to. I believe that if we explore interdisciplinarity, we may find that things are actually of complement to each other, and this will avoid this alleged competition between classes. A problem that many times will happen in curriculum or curriculum reform is that we look to this attractiveness or sexiness aspect of the classes, and we forget the class's goals and also the profile of the students. And many times we try to do 2 or 3 in one, and when we are not careful, we end up not doing any of the 3. And so I completely agree. This is what would be the mercantilization of a curriculum.
No, thank you very much, Edson. I think that is just spot on observation and comment. Let me read, Felix says, in light of Africans underdevelopment, how do you think history should be done to serve African society? So note that, and then Rhodian has the last word. Rhodian? Oh, he got angry and left. Rhodian, are you there?
Yeah, thank you. Can I come in now?
Yes, do.
Yes, thank you, please.
Brief, okay?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the issue. All right. Yeah, I wanted to comment on the issue of citations. Yeah, one discussant referred to differences in the popularity of the journals in which the different articles were published.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, and I was thinking of the differences in years of publication. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sure. Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
We can
I was
hear you.
thinking of yes. All right. So I was saying, I was thinking of the differences in the years of publication. To what extent do you think the years of publication could also have influenced the citations? For example, I think I saw one article which you referred to, which was published in 1996, and another one in 2007. And I think in the way people do things these days, they prefer most recent articles to ones that were published a long time ago. And I think it's also the presence maybe of the journal on the internet, especially for those articles that have just been recently published. I don't know if you also considered that in the way citations were counted. Thank you.
Tayo, if you could respond to both in a minute, we will be automatically thrown out of this room in a minute. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes, you are Rhodian, you are right. The journals, outlets, years of publication, all these are significant in the access to what we got. But of course, everything counts, everything. And so we are not going to be fastidious about that to say, well, these are hard and fast rules. This is what we have. This is how it must be. No, everything in history, we are not unilinear in history. Everything is on the table. So thank you for the comment. You are absolutely right. Then for Felix, how does history serve African societies? It's by opening your mind, opening the minds of the people, giving them information, trying to also articulate positions, giving them orientations of what was, what is, and what is likely to be when you understand the past. Without understanding the past, the present and the future are in danger. So history is very important in opening up your minds. Okay?
No, thank you, Tayo. This is very exciting and detailed. Let me just add a footnote as we close that the question of about objectivity and creativity, I think also dovetails with the question of who is telling the history. Is it his story or her story? Or now in this part of the world, them story. So each of these, whether his story, her story, them story, their story, each have perspectives. So the question of objectivity therefore becomes very subjective, depending on who is telling the story and from what social location. So
and for what purpose?
And for what purposes, yes. What politics are involved in that. So thank you so much, Professor Adesina, for these additional insights.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So
thank you and congratulations on this.
Yes, thank you.